Hey everybody, it's John, the proprietor of JB's Total Gaming. Yeah, I like that word. So, in the past when I was just a board gaming channel, I did some opinion pieces now and then, and I figured I'll do one about the video game industry right now. A little bit of a rant because, well, I think the video game industry deserves it right now. So, first of all, I want to just weigh in on my opinion on the ending of Firewatch, just really quickly, because that seems to be an area of controversy. And I want to say, initially when I saw the ending, I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was in line with kind of what the game was trying to do. And as I went back and looked at it, I've kind of changed my opinions a little bit. Being a nerd, I'm kind of an expert in bad endings. I mean, I stuck with Lost, even though I only enjoyed the first 2 seasons. And that disappointed. There was Battlestar Galactica, where the writer and the Cylons did not really have a plan, despite what was advertised. There was the Dark Tower series, and actually part of the reason I'm mentioning this game, Firewatch, if you're not familiar with it, it is a kind of walking simulator, interactive narrative, whatever you want to call it. But in general, I'm not a fan of that genre. I really liked the Stanley Parable. Gone Home was alright, but I wasn't really a big fan of Soma, and a lot of the other ones I really just didn't like, Dear Esther and stuff like that. But, well, looking back, I feel like while the ending fit what the narrative was trying to do, it didn't fit the narrative itself. There were a lot of details in the narrative that I feel like if you were going for, and I don't want to spoil it, but if you were going to try to do what you were trying to do, there were other actions the entities causing things to happen could have taken that weren't so just odd looking back on it. And I feel like the ending was actually good, just it didn't tie in with the narrative all that well based on some of the things that happened not really making a lot of sense. But anyways, I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there on that because, well, I think it's important to have a consistent narrative, and I'm not sure looking back if that narrative was consistent. And speaking of a consistent narrative, something more kind of directly board game industry related. So Microsoft announced that Quantum Break is going to be on the PC as well as the Xbox 360. Now, first of all, there are some people who are annoyed by that for some reason. I'm not even going to talk about that. Whatever. But Microsoft keeps talking about again and again how they want to devote to the gaming, to PC gaming, and show that they're serious about PC gaming. And, well, this is a narrative that I really have a problem with, because what they're doing is, and again, I've been saying this for years, time and time again, saying they're going to recommit themselves, and now with Windows 10, they're, saying that they're going to do it now with Windows 10, and I feel like Microsoft has kind of become the Peter Molyneux of industries. They keep promising things, not doing what they promise, and then promise they'll do it again, and really we mean it this time. Okay, Microsoft. So, you're bringing a game to the Windows Store only. Well, what's the first problem with this? The Windows Store is terrible. A store that you can rent games like Solitaire and Minesweeper for a year for prices that you could buy a really good indie game instead. Nobody uses the Windows Store for gaming because, well, it's terrible. I mean, you've got GOG that had refunds and great customer service before other sites did, and a lot of old games. You've got Steam with a great selection and a lot of sales. So the Windows Store really doesn't have anything going for it. I mean, even Origin has turned out to be an alright platform, and you can do the premium service where you get access to games and stuff like that, and it really doesn't seem like too terrible of a deal. The Windows Store is not a place for gaming, and you either need to completely renovate it and quit having this rent games and just having terrible games on there and have a decent selection, or just scrap the whole idea and bring your games to Steam like everybody else. Because this idea that, oh, we're going to bring these games but you have to play them on Windows 10, it just doesn't work. It's just a way to get Windows 10 on systems, and anyone paying attention knows that. And nobody, I mean, some people are excited about Quantum Break, but you really want to say you're committed to gaming? Why wasn't Halo on PC? Every Microsoft title should come out on PC if you're committed to gaming, and honestly, it should be on Steam, or you should completely revamp the Windows Store. If you're going to keep telling us that you're committed to PC gaming, then show it. Show it by actually bringing games to PC, bringing the major titles to PC, not trying to just squeeze out as much as you can out of the Xbox. Because, well, that's the only way we're going to believe it, and saying, oh, we're going to bring this game that a few people are interested in, but only to the Windows Store, and you have to get Windows 10. No, that's committed to Windows 10, not to PC gaming. You should be committed to the people you're serving, not just your products. And if you want us to believe it, then do stuff like that. Don't bring titles and say, well, if you get Windows 10, you can come to this store exclusively and buy it. No, that's committed to yourself, not to your consumers. So, speaking of being committed to certain groups, Street Fighter V release. I say it released, but, well, initially there were server issues, and I'm not going to get into that. A lot of games have server issues, but, well, it does kind of get frustrating that when you buy a new game with an online component, you're almost expecting there to be server issues. But anyways, from my understanding, they've gotten past most of that lately, but it's the content of the game that's really in question. There is no arcade mode. You literally cannot get on and play 3 rounds against the opponent and keep going. There is what they're calling a story mode, but it's 2 to 4 matches with each person on a super easy AI that you can't change the AI, and then you get a little cutscene with cartoon sort of graphics, and that's it. And that's basically the single player, a terrible tutorial, and online. So you might say, well, as a consumer, it's your job to see, what's in the game before you buy it. I disagree. If I am buying a full price $60 game, I expect it to have content, not, oh, that content is coming. And, well, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't even think they've come out and said, but most people believe that the reason that this happened is they wanted the game to be out for people who take part in tournaments and things like that. Well, that's all fine and dandy that you're committed to your tournament scene, but again, what about your everyday consumers that just like your product and want to play? So they just have to wait? I mean, when you get a new game, you're excited, you want to play it. You don't want to wait several months until, the actual content for the game comes out. It's ridiculous. And you're, showing, again, a commitment to a group, but not your core group. And I feel like there's so many better ways they could have done this. They could have made it more clear what they were doing. They could have released not a full version of the game. They could have released it just to players playing. I mean, there's some other way to do it than to release a $60 game and say, oh, the game's actually coming later. I get that if all you care about is online, that's there, and that's fine, but that isn't everybody. And I just feel like it's disrespectful to your consumers. So, yeah. It really bothered me, but it doesn't bother me as much as this last thing. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, and look, I know I'm speaking into an empty space. I know nobody's really going to care, and this isn't going to change anything. But I wanted to speak about just gamers in general getting angry about things before they really know what's going on. I recently listened to a fantastic podcast, Radio Lab, that I listen to anyways, but they did a really interesting segment on the guy who developed the game, That Dragon Cancer. Now, if you're not familiar with the game That Dragon Cancer, it was done by a man whose son was suffering from cancer. He was diagnosed at, I believe, just over a year old. And near the ending of making the game, his son actually did die to cancer. And it was a game kind of about that battle. And here's the thing, I'll admit, when I first heard about the game, even though I didn't really think it was true, there's a part of my brain that ticked on and said, is this person trying to, market their son's death or something like that? Not because, it's something that I actually thought was really going on, but because I've basically been taught by industries in general, not just the gaming industry, that, companies are willing to do whatever it takes to make a buck. And, well, the more I thought about it, the more I said that's probably not the case, but listening to this podcast, obviously, I mean, there's not that there was a lot of doubt in my mind, but there definitely isn't, and I highly suggest you listen to it. I believe the title of it is called The Cathedral on the Radiolab podcast, and it was a really fascinating story, and I do know that this man and this family received, quite a bit of trolling and people, thinking that they were doing something wrong and just a lot of nastiness. And it was interesting because I was also listening to recently Total Biscuit talking about, he was doing an interview with the BBC, and they were discussing, basically trolling and people being terrible on the internet to women, but they wanted a male's perspective as well. And listening to him talk about some of the things that he's gone through, the particularly striking one was when somebody got onto his wife's Twitter or some social media and was like, how does it feel to know your husband's going to die of cancer? And it's just, look, I know trolling is a thing. I know people say terrible things on the internet, but I just have to throw my 2 cents in after listening to both of these stories recently. And, well, I get that sometimes people are angry about things, but I'm just going to say 2 things. And again, I know this probably doesn't matter, but I feel like it is my duty to say these things. First of all, if you're going to be angry about something, be sure you know what you're talking about. Just because you assume something or you hear something doesn't mean it's true. Secondly, if you're going to be angry about something, that's fine. Sometimes you are justified in being angry about something. But you need to think about how to proportion that anger. Here's the deal. I call this video a rant, and I'm talking about video games. But at the end of the day, we're just talking about gaming. Gaming. It's not as serious as real life things. It's not as serious as things like cancer. And to pretend that it is, to get so angry and upset, to threaten somebody's life because you're a little bit angry about something or disagree with them slightly or think that someone's a terrible person and they deserve this because, they did a thing that you didn't particularly like, it's dumbfounding to me. I mean, and it's because, obviously, we live in the internet age and people have anonymity that they can do things like this. Stuff that, otherwise would get you imprisoned. And in some cases still will, and it absolutely blows my mind. And I feel like even though it's going to be entirely useless, I have to say, you know what? It's gaming, people. There are a lot of things to be upset about. There are a lot of things you could be putting that effort towards in trying to improve the world. And having a different opinion about someone about a gaming system or an opinion on a game or whatever, it's not worth it. Your life, everyone's life will be better if you just take a chill pill and have fun. That's what gaming's about, having fun with other people. And if something makes you upset, well, that's a part of life. And if you can't deal with that, get help. Like, I'm serious. Get help. If you have to threaten people and just say terrible things because they disagree with you, there is something wrong with you. And the internet has allowed you the ability to do that without repercussion. That doesn't mean that it's acceptable. And again, I know it's useless of me to say that, but I'm ranting, and I felt like out of everything, that's the most important rant to talk about, even if it's the least likely that anything will be done about it. So there you go. There's my opinions on some of the current topics in gaming. And, something I may do some more of in the future, but it's just, there were quite a few things that just really kind of hit me recently, and I thought it would be a good time to do a little video about it. So, I don't know, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope that, again, even if I don't do any good, I felt like I had the need to say it, and hopefully you didn't mind listening. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.